I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege before I start too much, before I go too far into this. I see my family and a few friends, and I just want to tell everyone that's here that I am indeed Stephan Blanford. Up until 2 weeks ago, I had foot-long dreadlocks, and if you saw the program, you probably saw me with dreadlocks, but in a moment of craziness or whatever, I decided to cut them off, and hopefully I still have power as a result as I'm presenting to you today. So I'll do my best. Please be kind. So I'm going to start off. You can go ahead. Obviously, I'm a school board director. I was elected in 2013 and have been working really hard on issues of equity. When I learned about the theme of this, I thought that it would make sense to title my presentation "Busting at the Seams." And so that worked really well, and talk a little bit about our challenges around enrollment and the fact that as Seattle is growing, so is the enrollment of Seattle Public Schools. So we'll do a little interaction here. I'm wondering how many people in the audience are parents or alumni of Seattle Public Schools. Can you raise your hand real quick? I see quite a number. That's great to hear. Thank you. And of those parents, I'm wondering how many of you sent your kid to a brand new school or they're in a different classroom than they were in last year? Any? Any parents? A few. Well, I can tell you at the outset that we have had about 10% of our teachers are in a brand new classroom or a brand new school. And that's because we are growing by leaps and bounds. The statistics, we have 97, 98 schools in Seattle Public Schools. And like I said, about 10% of those teachers are in brand new places. And so like I said, we're growing by leaps and bounds. There are a number of new schools that will come up on this next slide that are in all parts of the city. And if I had more slides, I could share with you a huge number of schools that are coming online to accommodate that growth. About 1,000 students a year, which equates to 3 elementary schools per year that we need to construct. Some of you may remember that in 2009, we were having a community conversation about closing schools. So very quickly, things have changed and gone in the opposite direction. And so we could talk forever about kids in seats, but I want to steer the conversation. I want to stop it and steer it in a different direction. When you see that bus, you know you're supposed to stop, right? If you're behind the bus, you're supposed to stop. So I'm going to stop us for a second and detour us in a different direction and talk less about the actual children in seats and talk more about the quality of education that they get and who gets education, who gets to participate in the society that we're talking about, those good jobs that are coming, and who doesn't get the opportunity to participate, who the winners will be and who the losers will be without our severe intervention. The next slide would be the dropout. So these are seats that are not filled by graduates, and we currently have a dropout rate of about 25%. So about 25% of our elementary school students will not get across the finish line and graduate with their peers. And so for a little bit of grounding, I will share with you the ethnicity of the students that we have, the 54,000 students. About 46% are white, and the remainder are students of color, and that's an important thing to know. I apologize for a chart. I'm a researcher, so I had to share at least one chart. So we were celebrating the fact that our achievement rates are going up. But last May, we received a report that said that Seattle has the 5th largest achievement or opportunity gaps of any large district in the nation. The 5th worst. And this is in a city that is very literate, very highly educated, and a progressive city that values education and wants to spread it widely. And so that is a deep and profound issue that we have to grapple with. And though we in Washington State, or we in Seattle are bad, in Washington State, we're the third worst district, or third worst state in terms of closing our gaps. And this has implications for our efforts to close our gaps are severely hampered by the fact that we're gentrifying as a city and we're pushing out our students of color, or we're concentrating them in a few schools. The research suggests that that doesn't work very well for closing our gaps. So when I think about my own vision as a school board, an elected school board representative here to serve your interests and the interest of the 54,000 students that come to Seattle Public Schools, I spend a lot of time thinking about equity. And I don't mean the equity that you get in a bank statement every month. I'm talking about racial equity. How do we, as a large institution, actually serve those 56% of students that come to our doors every day? And I'm not talking about equal. There are lots of people that equate equity and equal. This is actually trying to serve those students that need the most in order to rise above that line, that dotted line that's on that picture there. And so at the early years, we're figuring out ways to partner with the city, primarily around early learning experiences, high quality early learning experiences, which have been shown in research to close our gaps, particularly our gaps for our low-income students and our students of color. And in the middle school years, we spend a lot of time talking about the whole child and not just trying to educate their brain, but work with all children at all stages of their development so that they can be successful. Work that I'm very interested in is having our teachers actually form teams and look at data through a racial equity lens. And more recently, we have reached out and done passed resolutions around out-of-school suspensions, because we know that the prison industrial complex starts with kids being kicked out of school. And so all of these things are steps that we have made, but I do not want to leave this stage with you thinking that I'm giving a commercial for Seattle Public Schools. We have a lot of work to do, and particularly if you think about that slide around the large achievement gaps. So these 7 people are your representatives, and you should hold them accountable for making a difference. And I will tell you that not all of us are on the same page when it comes to actually closing gaps. And so it's incumbent on you, on each one of you, to start pushing on this issue. And I could spend forever talking about this, but I will have a community meeting at the bottom there, and I hope we can have more dialogue about these issues, and we can move forward from there. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me blather on.